Have you ever found yourself in the middle of an argument you never saw coming? That moment when your partner says something that instantly sends your heart racing and your thoughts spiraling. You know that feeling when emotions take over, logic disappears, and suddenly you're reacting instead of responding. In those heated moments, it's easy to feel like you're drowning in the chaos of the relationship, swept away by waves of frustration, misunderstanding, and raw emotion. But what if I told you there's a way to become the calm within that storm? An ancient philosophy, tested by time and practiced by some of history's greatest minds, offers a path to inner stability even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. That philosophy is Stoicism. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming cold and detached. Instead, it teaches us how to navigate life's challenges with clarity, resilience, and a deep sense of inner peace. For centuries, Stoic principles have helped individuals face adversity, make wiser decisions, and cultivate relationships built on understanding rather than reaction. And in today's fast-paced world, where relationships are constantly tested by stress, miscommunication, and external pressures, these timeless lessons are more relevant than ever. This isn't about changing your partner or controlling the situation, it's about mastering yourself so that no matter what chaos arises, you remain grounded, centered, and truly present. In this video, we're going to explore 25 Stoic lessons that will transform how you handle emotional turbulence in your relationships. These aren't abstract ideas, they're practical, actionable insights that you can start applying today to foster deeper connection, reduce conflict, and become the steady presence your relationship needs. Whether you're dealing with daily disagreements or larger challenges, these lessons will guide you toward a calmer, more thoughtful approach to love and partnership. So if you're ready to stop reacting and start responding to become the calm in her chaos, then you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey together. Now let's dive into the very first lesson, and honestly, it's the bedrock upon which everything else is built. This is the Stoic concept of understanding what is within your control and what is not. The ancient Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and it's the ultimate tool for reclaiming your peace in the middle of any relationship storm. Think about it like this: in any given moment, especially a tense one, there are two categories of things. The first includes everything that is outside your command: your partner's mood, their tone of voice, the words they choose, their past experiences, their ingrained habits. You cannot control these things any more than you can control the weather. The second category, however, is everything that is within your power: your own reactions, your interpretations of events, the boundaries you set, and the values you choose to live by. When we get this distinction wrong, we exhaust ourselves trying to manage the unmanageable. We plead for our partner to be less stressed, we argue against their feelings, we try to logic them out of a bad mood. And when it doesn't work, which it rarely does, we feel frustrated, powerless, and even more chaotic ourselves. But when we truly internalize this lesson, we stop wasting energy on what we can't change and start investing it in what we can. For instance, you can't control if your partner comes home from work irritable and snaps at you. That is their reaction stemming from their day. But you absolutely control whether you snap back, whether you take it personally, or whether you pause, recognize their stress is not about you, and choose a response that de-escalates the situation rather than fuels it. This isn't about being passive or indifferent, it's about being strategically empowered. Your focus shifts from trying to fix her chaos to mastering your own calm. You begin to ask a different set of questions. Instead of, "Why is she so angry?" which focuses on what you can't control, you ask, "How will I respond to this anger?" which focuses on what you can. This single shift in perspective is revolutionary. It moves you from a position of reaction to a position of choice. You are no longer a passenger on an emotional roller coaster. You are the one who decides whether to even get on the ride. This foundational skill makes all the other lessons possible because it gives you the clarity to see where your real power lies. Now, let's move to the second lesson, which might initially sound counterintuitive but is incredibly powerful for building emotional resilience. This is the practice of negative visualization, a technique the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At its core, it's the disciplined practice of intentionally imagining the worst-case scenarios that could unfold in your relationship. Before you dismiss this as a recipe for anxiety or pessimism, understand that its true purpose is the exact opposite. This isn't about dwelling on fears, it's about disarming them. By voluntarily visiting a difficult potential future in your mind, you systematically rob it of its power to shock or control you in the present moment. Think about the common anxieties that can plague a relationship: the fear of a major argument erupting over something trivial, the worry that a misunderstanding could spiral into days of silence, the deep-seated dread of a breakup or loss. When these fears live in the shadows of your mind, unexamined, they hold immense power. They can make you overly cautious, needy, or irritable. You might avoid difficult conversations because you're afraid of where they might lead, or you might become hypersensitive to your partner's moods, interpreting them as signs of impending disaster. Negative visualization brings these fears into the light. You consciously and calmly think through the scenario. What if we did have that huge fight? What if we did misunderstand each other completely? What if this relationship did end? The magic happens not in the imagining of the event, but in the next crucial step. You visualize yourself navigating it with stoic composure. You don't just picture the argument, you picture yourself within it, pausing before speaking, listening to understand, and managing your own reactions with grace. You don't just fear the breakup, you contemplate the reality that you would, in fact, be okay. You would feel the pain, you would grieve the loss, but you would endure and eventually find solid ground again. This process transforms abstract, terrifying monsters into concrete, manageable situations. It moves you from a state of fear to a state of practical preparedness. The unknown becomes the known, and what is known is always less frightening. This practice has a profoundly grounding effect. When a real challenge arises, it's no longer a catastrophic, unprecedented event. It's a scenario you have already faced and handled with dignity in your mind. This preparation creates a buffer between the event and your reaction, allowing you to access a calm and thoughtful response rather than a panicked one. For example, if you've mentally rehearsed staying calm during a misunderstanding, when one actually occurs, your brain has a neural pathway already prepared. Instead of reacting with "this is it, it's happening, everything is falling apart," you can access a quieter, more rational thought. "This is difficult, but it's a scenario I've prepared for. I can handle this with patience and clarity." This isn't about expecting the worst, it's about being prepared for it, which in turn allows you to fully appreciate and engage with the present without the constant underlying fear of losing it. You stop clinging so tightly to the relationship out of fear and start participating in it from a place of strength and genuine presence. This brings us to a third, profoundly transformative Stoic practice that can completely reframe how you experience hardship in your relationship: the concept of amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to "a love of one's fate." This is not about passive resignation or simply gritting your teeth and enduring the difficult times. Amor fati is an active, heartfelt embrace of everything that happens: the smooth, joyful moments and the chaotic, painful ones, not as random misfortunes but as essential threads in the fabric of your shared journey. It's the decision to see every event, especially the challenges, as raw material for building a stronger, more resilient bond. To understand how this works in practice, we can look to the life of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher-emperor. His marriage to Empress Faustina was far from the idealized picture of Roman domestic bliss. History and rumor suggest she may have been unfaithful, and Marcus faced immense public scrutiny and personal heartache because of it. He had every reason to be bitter, to lash out, or to retreat into coldness. Yet in his private journal, Meditations, we see no trace of vengeful anger or self-pity. Instead, he wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is Amor Fati in action. He chose to see the difficulties not as insults to be avenged, but as fuel for his own inner fire, as opportunities to practice the virtues of forgiveness, patience, and understanding. You can apply this same mindset to the challenges in your own relationship. That frustrating argument about finances isn't just a fight. It's a necessary, albeit uncomfortable, conversation that forces you both to align your values and create a more secure future. Your partner's stressful week, which makes them short-tempered and distant, isn't a personal rejection. It's an invitation for you to practice empathy and provide a non-judgmental, steady presence. Even a major betrayal, while intensely painful, can become a crucible that forges a deeper, more honest level of communication and commitment if you both choose to walk through the fire together. The chaotic moment is no longer an obstacle on your path, it is the path. This shift in perspective is incredibly empowering because it places you back in the role of the author of your experience. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this happening for me? What strength is it inviting me to develop? What deeper understanding can it reveal?" When you learn to love your fate, including the rocky parts of your relationship, you drain the situation of its power to victimize you. You begin to see your partner not as the source of your chaos, but as your fellow traveler and teacher in a shared curriculum of growth. Every difficulty becomes a custom-designed lesson in patience, compassion, or courage. By embracing Amor Fati, you don't just survive the storms, you learn to appreciate the rain for the growth it brings. Think of the last time you and your partner had a disagreement that left you feeling drained and frustrated. In that moment, it probably felt like a problem to be solved or a battle to be won. But what if you could shift your entire perspective and see that very argument not as a setback, but as a necessary workout? This brings us to our fourth Stoic lesson, developing emotional resilience through what we can call obstacle training. The Stoics had a powerful belief that obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. Every challenge, especially within a relationship, is a specially designed exercise to develop a stronger, more virtuous character. Imagine you're trying to build physical strength. You don't just wish for bigger muscles, you go to the gym and you lift weights. The resistance from the weight is what actually tears the muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger than before. In the very same way, your relationship provides the perfect gym for your emotional and philosophical muscles. Your partner's differing opinion isn't a personal attack, it's the weight. A misunderstanding about plans isn't a catastrophe, it's the resistance. A moment of thoughtlessness isn't a sign of a failing relationship, it's the barbell you need to lift to grow. Without these weights, you would never get stronger. This is the art of reframing. It's about consciously choosing to see an emotional challenge not as something happening to you, but as something happening for you. When your partner criticizes you, the immediate, untrained reaction might be to become defensive or to counter-criticize. But with an obstacle training mindset, you pause and recognize this as a workout for your humility and your listening skills. The goal shifts from winning the exchange to practicing a virtue. You ask yourself, can I listen to this feedback without my ego getting in the way? Can I find the kernel of truth in what they're saying, even if it's delivered poorly? That is the repetition. That is the set. This practice transforms the very nature of conflict. The pressure of a heated moment ceases to be a threat and becomes an assessment, a chance to see how much you've grown and where you still need to train. Did you manage to hold your tongue and respond with kindness when you wanted to snap? That's a personal record. Did you fail and react impulsively? That's not a failure of the relationship. It's simply a sign that this is a muscle group that needs more focused work next time. There's no shame in it, only valuable data. This approach cultivates an incredible patience with both yourself and your partner, because you start to see both of you as athletes in the same gym, each working on your own form, sometimes spotting each other, and sometimes accidentally dropping the weight on the other's foot. The intention is progress, not perfection. Over time, this consistent training builds a profound and unshakable emotional resilience. You stop dreading disagreements because you understand their purpose. You begin to appreciate your partner, quirks and all, for providing the exact resistance you need to become a better, calmer, and more understanding person. The chaos is no longer a storm to be weathered. It's the wind that allows you to learn how to sail. Now, let's explore a fifth lesson, a powerful technique that can instantly dissolve the intensity of any argument and reconnect you with what's truly important. This is the Stoic practice known as the view from above. It's a form of mental time travel and perspective shifting that pulls you out of the narrow, heated confines of a personal conflict and places you high above it, granting a panoramic view of your life, your relationship, and your place in the vast cosmos. When you're locked in a tense discussion, your focus narrows to the immediate words, the tone of voice, the perceived slight. It feels like the entire world has shrunk to this single, charged moment. The view from above is the antidote to that tunnel vision. Here's how you can practice it, even in the middle of a difficult conversation. The next time you feel that familiar surge of frustration or hurt, just for a moment, close your eyes if you can, or simply pause and look upward. In your mind's eye, begin to pull back. First, see the two of you in the room. Then see your entire home or building from the outside. Keep pulling back. See your street, your neighborhood, your city from the sky, with all its countless cars and lives and stories unfolding simultaneously. Pull back further until you see the curve of the earth, a beautiful blue and white marble hanging in the immense blackness of space. From this vantage point, your argument, no matter how passionate, is just one tiny event in one tiny room on one tiny planet. This isn't meant to minimize your feelings or suggest your relationship doesn't matter. On the contrary, it's meant to maximize your clarity. From this cosmic perspective, the small details that fuel so much conflict, who forgot to take the trash out, the exact wording of a complaint, who started what, simply lose their weight. They are revealed for what they are, transient blips on the radar of a shared life. What comes into sharp focus instead are the monumental things that truly matter. The fact that you have someone to share this brief, miraculous existence with, the profound gift of love and companionship amidst the infinite silence of the universe. The shared history you've built and the potential future you're crafting together. This practice is a direct attack on what the Stoics called propatheiai, those initial, raw, involuntary flashes of emotion that hijack our reasoning. By consciously engaging the view from above, you insert a crucial pause between that initial feeling and your reaction. You create space for your wiser, calmer self to step in. Instead of reacting to the comment that hurt you, you can respond from a place that understands the vast, beautiful context of your life together. You can choose to prioritize the health of the relationship over the need to be right in a single moment. This shift doesn't make you weak, it makes you profoundly strong, because your actions are no longer dictated by a fleeting emotion, but are guided by your deepest values and a clear-eyed view of what is truly significant. There is a profound power in what you choose not to say, a sixth Stoic lesson that can transform the entire atmosphere of a conflict in an instant. This is the mastery of strategic silence. In our modern world, we're conditioned to believe that every moment of tension requires a verbal response, that silence is awkward or a sign of weakness or losing an argument. The Stoics, however, understood something far more insightful. They saw silence not as an empty void, but as a fertile space, a crucial pause where reason can catch up to emotion and where true listening can finally begin. Think of a typical argument. It often resembles a verbal tennis match, with each person rapidly volleying back their defensive points, barely listening to the other because they're too busy crafting their next rebuttal. The goal becomes scoring a point rather than reaching an understanding. This is where strategic silence acts as a circuit breaker. It's the conscious decision to stop the volley, to let the ball drop, and to create a moment of stillness. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This wasn't just a cute proverb, it was a practical guideline for life. He recognized that our reactive speech is often the primary source of our troubles, while attentive listening is the foundation of wisdom and peace. Implementing this isn't about giving your partner the silent treatment, which is a passive-aggressive tactic designed to punish. Strategic silence is an active, compassionate, and disciplined practice. It's the silence of restraint, not resentment. Here's how it works in the heat of the moment. When your partner says something that triggers a strong emotional reaction in you, perhaps an accusation or a harsh criticism, your biological impulse is to fire back immediately. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, and your brain prepares for a fight. This is precisely the moment to deploy your silence. Instead of speaking, you take a slow, deliberate breath. You consciously keep your mouth closed and you simply listen. You absorb their words without the filter of your own defensiveness. This pause accomplishes several transformative things at once. First, it prevents you from saying something in the heat of the moment that you will later regret: a sharp insult, an unfair generalization, a low blow that can't be taken back. Words spoken in anger are like feathers released from a pillow in a windstorm. You can never truly gather them all back. Silence protects you from creating that kind of lasting damage. Second, it completely disarms the escalating energy of the conflict. Arguing requires 2 participants. When one person stops arguing and simply listens, the dynamic is forced to change. It becomes very difficult for the other person to continue yelling at someone who is calmly and quietly receiving their words. Most importantly, this strategic pause creates the essential space for you to access your rational mind. In that quiet moment, you can ask yourself the fundamental Stoic questions. Is this within my control? What is the virtue I need to practice here? Is my reaction proportionate to the event? This brief silence allows you to transition from a reactive state to a responsive one. Your eventual reply will no longer be a raw, emotional counterattack. It will be a considered, measured response aimed at de-escalation and understanding. You might say, "I need a moment to process what you've said," or "I hear that you're really upset about this. Help me understand why." This kind of response, born from silence, has the power to turn a confrontation into a conversation. It signals respect, values understanding over winning, and demonstrates the ultimate form of control, mastery over your own impulses. This brings us to a lesson that cuts to the very heart of why we experience so much frustration and disappointment in our relationships, and it's called the discipline of desire. At its core, this Stoic practice is about rigorously examining what you are asking from your partner and your relationship, and then courageously aligning those wants with what is actually virtuous, healthy, and achievable. Most of our emotional turmoil doesn't spring from the events themselves, but from the gap between our rigid expectations and reality. The discipline of desire is the tool that closes that gap. Think about the common sources of conflict. You desire your partner to always be in a good mood, to never misunderstand you, to anticipate your needs without you having to communicate them, to share all your interests, and to make you feel completely secure at all times. These are the fantasies we often carry into a relationship, the unconscious checklist we expect our partner to fulfill. The Stoics would call these unnatural and impossible desires. They are unnatural because they are not based on the flawed human nature of real people, and they are impossible because no human being could ever consistently meet them. When we hold onto these fantasies, we are setting our partner up for failure and ourselves up for perpetual disappointment. Every time reality inevitably diverges from this fantasy, which it will constantly, we interpret it as a problem with the relationship or with our partner, rather than a problem with our own expectations. So how do we apply this discipline? It starts with a simple but profound shift, redirecting your desire away from trying to control your partner's behavior and toward mastering your own judgments and actions. Instead of desiring that your partner never gets upset, desire for yourself the ability to remain calm and compassionate when they are upset. Instead of craving a conflict-free relationship, cultivate a desire for the wisdom to navigate conflicts with grace and understanding. You shift from wanting to change her to wanting to improve your virtue in response to her. This is where your real power lies. The goal is not to have a partner who never creates chaos, but to become a person whom chaos cannot disturb. This involves a continuous practice of discernment. Before a desire takes root and causes pain, you must examine it. Ask yourself, is this desire within my control? Is it virtuous? Is it realistic? Desiring more quality time together is a healthy and achievable desire if you communicate it and collaboratively work on schedules. Desiring that your partner intuitively knows you need more quality time and acts on it without communication is a fantasy that will lead to resentment. One desire is based on proactive, virtuous action. The other is based on a passive hope for mind reading. The first strengthens the relationship, the second slowly poisons it. By applying the discipline of desire, you stop waiting for your relationship to make you happy and start taking responsibility for creating happiness within the relationship through your own rational choices and virtuous actions. You trade a long list of demands for a deep well of inner stability. Imagine building a fortress deep inside yourself, a place of perfect calm that remains unshaken no matter how fierce the storm rages outside. This is the Stoic concept of the inner citadel, a mental and emotional stronghold you cultivate to ensure that your peace is never held hostage by your partner's mood, a difficult day, or any external chaos. The Roman philosopher Seneca beautifully captured this idea when he wrote that a wise person is like a deep sea that remains calm and constant even as the winds whip the surface into waves. Your partner's emotional, whether their frustration, anxiety, or irritability, is that surface wind. It can be loud and dramatic, but it doesn't have to reach the still depths of your own being. Building this inner citadel doesn't require you to withdraw from the relationship or become emotionally distant. In fact, it allows you to engage more fully and compassionately because you are no longer operating from a place of reactive anxiety. The foundation of this citadel is built on a simple but profound realization. Your emotional state is your responsibility, not your partner's, not circumstances yours. When your partner comes home in a terrible mood, the untrained instinct is to absorb that mood, to let it become your own. Their stress becomes your stress, their bad day ruins your evening. This creates a volatile cycle where the emotional state of one person dictates the reality for both. The inner citadel breaks this cycle. You learn to acknowledge their storm without letting it rain on your parade. So how do you actually build this? It starts with the conscious practice of creating a buffer between an external event and your internal reaction. Picture a literal fortress with a gate. Every event, every word, every tone of voice must present itself at that gate, and you, as the guardian, choose whether to let it in. Your partner's critical comment arrives at the gate. Before you swing it open and let it wreak havoc inside, you pause. You ask yourself the Stoic questions: is this true? Is this useful? Is this within my control? If the comment is untrue, you dismiss it at the gate. It doesn't get to enter your mind. If it contains a kernel of truth, you can choose to let only that small, useful piece in for consideration, while leaving the harsh delivery and emotional charge outside. This practice is fueled by a clear understanding of what truly belongs to you. Your judgments, your values, your actions, and your responses are the only things that are truly yours. Your partner's emotions, their opinions, their reactions, these are their property. You can be compassionate and supportive without making them your own. When your partner is anxious about a work presentation, you can offer comfort and listen without taking on their anxiety. You can be a steady harbor for their ship without becoming the storm-tossed sea itself. This is the essence of being the calm. You provide a stable, peaceful presence that can actually help to escalate their chaos, rather than amplifying it by adding your own reactive energy to the mix. Seneca advised that we should periodize our lives, setting aside time for quiet reflection to strengthen this inner fortitude. This is the daily maintenance of your citadel. It might be 5 minutes of morning meditation where you set your intention for emotional sovereignty. It could be a brief walk where you consciously release the desire to control things outside yourself. In these moments, you reinforce the walls. You remind yourself of what is yours to manage and what is not. The more you practice this, the more automatic it becomes. A raised voice that once would have triggered an immediate defensive reaction now simply registers as noise outside the walls. You might feel the initial vibration, but the core of you remains steady, quiet, and capable of choosing a response that comes from a place of strength, not fear. Your inner peace becomes non-negotiable, a prize you no longer willingly hand over to the chaos of the outside world. Now, let's turn to a 9th Stoic exercise that feels almost like a superpower once you master it, a deliberate form of mental preparation that immunizes you against the shock and disorientation of real-world conflict. This is the practice of premeditatio malorum, which translates from Latin as the premeditation of evils. At first glance, the idea of sitting down and vividly imagining everything that could go wrong in your relationship might sound like a recipe for anxiety or pessimism. But the Stoic purpose is the exact opposite. It's about systematically draining potential future hardships of their power to emotionally ambush you. By voluntarily visiting these difficult scenarios in the safe space of your own mind, you ensure that if they ever occur in reality, they feel familiar and manageable rather than catastrophic and unprecedented. Think of it as a fire drill for your emotional composure. We don't conduct fire drills because we expect the building to burn down. We do them so that if the alarm ever sounds, our response is practiced, calm, and effective, not a blind panic. Premeditatio malorum applies this same principle of preparedness to your relationship. You are running mental drills for the challenges that are statistically likely to occur. What if we have a major disagreement about finances? What if one of us says something truly hurtful in the heat of an argument? What if we hit a period of emotional distance or boredom? Instead of fearing these possibilities, you lean into them with intentional curiosity. The crucial part of this practice, and what separates it from mere worrying, is that you don't just imagine the negative event happening. You must vividly visualize your ideal Stoic response within that event. You script the movie of the conflict, but you cast your wiser self in the leading role. For example, if you're rehearsing a potential argument, you don't imagine yourself winning the argument. You imagine yourself pausing to take a deep breath when you feel provoked. You picture yourself actively listening to your partner's perspective without interrupting. You see yourself choosing words that are firm yet kind, that defend your boundaries without attacking their character. You visualize de-escalating the tension rather than pouring fuel on the fire. This mental rehearsal creates powerful neural pathways. You're quite literally programming your brain for virtue. When you then face a similar situation in real life, it feels less like a terrifying unknown and more like a scenario you have already navigated successfully. There's a profound sense of "I've been here before" that allows your trained reflexes to take over. The initial flash of anger or hurt might still arise. Those are the propathii, the pre-emotions the Stoics acknowledged we can't always control. But your reaction following that flash is no longer a raw, untrained response. It's a chosen one, guided by the mental blueprint you've already laid down. This practice cultivates a deep and steady confidence because you know that no matter what the day brings, you have already faced a version of it in your mind and emerged with your character intact. You are never truly caught off guard. This brings us to a 10th and pivotal Stoic lesson, one that completely reframes the very purpose of conflict within a relationship. It's the understanding that adversity is not an interruption of your harmony, but the very furnace in which the strength of your character is forged. The Stoics believed that a virtue never tested is no virtue at all. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to act with principle despite fear. In the very same way, patience isn't the absence of annoyance, it's the capacity to remain calm and kind when you are profoundly annoyed. Your relationship provides the perfect and often most difficult training ground to practice these virtues under real-world pressure. Think of it like this: it's easy to be patient when everything is going smoothly. It requires no strength of character to be understanding when your partner is being perfectly understandable. The true test, and therefore the true opportunity for growth, arrives precisely when it's most difficult. That moment when your partner unfairly criticizes you is not a moment to be endured. It is a pop quiz on your humility and your capacity for non-defensive listening. That recurring argument about household chores is not a nuisance. It is a weekly seminar on negotiation, fairness, and shared responsibility. The frustration you feel when you're misunderstood is not a sign that the relationship is failing. It is a direct invitation to practice the virtue of clear and compassionate communication. Every single challenge is a choice point where you get to decide which version of yourself you will be. Will you choose the easy path of reaction, snapping back, withdrawing, or playing the victim? Or will you choose the more difficult, more rewarding path of response, pausing to understand, seeking common ground, and offering grace? Each time you consciously choose the latter, you are not just solving a temporary problem. You are actively building a more resilient, more virtuous character. You are quite literally sculpting your soul through your actions. The ancient Stoics called this ascesis, a form of spiritual exercise where life's challenges are the weights you lift to build moral muscle. This perspective is incredibly liberating because it removes the sting of resentment. You stop seeing your partner as someone who creates problems for you and start to see them, perhaps ironically, as your most valuable partner in personal growth. Their flaws and difficult moments are the sandpaper that smooths your own rough edges. Their emotional chaos is the wind against which you learn to set your own anchor. This doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or disrespect. It means you approach even the most trying interactions with the primary intention of emerging from them as a better person, regardless of the outcome. Your focus shifts from trying to change your partner to using the interaction as a means to deepen your own virtues of patience, forgiveness, and unwavering compassion. When you embrace this mindset, conflicts lose their power to devastate you. A heated argument becomes less about who is right and more about how well you can practice justice and temperance. A period of distance becomes a chance to practice trust and self-sufficiency. Every difficulty becomes a custom-designed lesson from the universe, tailor-made to strengthen a specific part of your character that needs work. You begin to face challenges not with dread, but with a curious sense of purpose, asking yourself, which virtue is this situation asking me to practice today? By transforming your relationship into a gym for your soul, you ensure that no struggle is ever wasted. Every moment of chaos becomes raw material for building an unshakable calm. Navigating the delicate space between deep caring and emotional overwhelm is one of the most vital skills in any relationship, and it brings us to our 11th Stoic lesson, the practice of mindful detachment. This concept, championed by the philosopher Epictetus, is often misunderstood. It does not mean building emotional walls, becoming cold, or checking out of the relationship. On the contrary, mindful detachment is the art of fully engaging your heart while consciously anchoring your peace to something unshakable, your own virtuous character. Epictetus offered a beautifully simple guideline. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The disturbance you feel is never about the event. It is always about your judgment of the event. To understand this, imagine your emotional state as a boat on the ocean. Your partner's moods, words, and actions are the wind and the waves. Without mindful detachment, you are a small dinghy tossed about by every change in the weather. Your entire sense of calm is dependent on the ocean being placid. But with mindful detachment, you become a submarine. You can still float on the surface and interact with the weather, but you also have the ability to seal the hatches and descend into a deep, calm, and stable depth whenever the storm above becomes too intense. You care about the storm, you observe it, you understand its power, but you are not at the mercy of it. Your tranquility is internalized. This practice hinges on a crucial Stoic distinction: the difference between what is truly good or bad and what is merely preferred or dispreferred. The only true good is your virtuous character acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. The only true evil is vice acting against those virtues. Everything else, your partner's affection, their approval, the smoothness of your day, is a preferred or dispreferred indifferent. It has value, but it does not have the power to make you good or bad. You can desire and work for a peaceful evening, but if an argument erupts, your character is not harmed unless you respond with cruelty or spite. Your goal shifts from controlling the external event to protecting your internal virtue. Applying this looks like caring deeply without clutching tightly. You can wholeheartedly hope your partner has a good day and be genuinely sympathetic when they don't, but you consciously refuse to let their bad day become your own emotional reality. You can passionately present your point of view in a discussion, but you detach from the specific outcome of them immediately agreeing with you. Your well-being remains intact whether they see it your way or not, because your self-worth is tied to having expressed yourself with honesty and respect, not to securing their validation. This is the equilibrium Epictetus described. You are not disturbed by what doesn't truly harm your character. A harsh word might be dispreferred. You would rather not hear it, but it cannot damage your core virtue unless you choose to respond with a harsh word in return. This mindful space allows you to respond with incredible clarity and compassion. Instead of being flooded with your own reactive hurt, you can see your partner's outburst for what it often is, a manifestation of their own pain, fear, or frustration. Because you are not taking it personally, you have the emotional bandwidth to ask, what is really going on here? What hurt is behind this anger? You stop reacting to the surface-level wave and start responding to the deeper current. This doesn't make you a passive doormat. It makes you a grounded, compassionate, and incredibly powerful partner. You become the calm not by not caring, but by caring so deeply about what truly matters, the health of your character and the integrity of the connection, that you refuse to be sidelined by the temporary chaos that poses no real threat to either. If you truly want to build an immunity to chaos, you must occasionally volunteer for it. This is the essence of our 12th Stoic lesson, the deliberate and strategic practice of voluntary discomfort. It might sound counterintuitive after all. The goal is less stress, not more. But the Stoics understood that by willingly stepping into minor, manageable hardships, we fortify ourselves against the major, unexpected ones. It's the emotional equivalent of a vaccine, a small, controlled exposure that trains your entire system to handle the real thing with far greater composure. In the context of your relationship, this means intentionally seeking out the very moments you usually avoid, not to create conflict, but to prove to yourself that you can navigate it without losing your center. Think of how we typically operate. We instinctively steer around difficult topics. We bite our tongue to keep the peace even when something needs to be said. We distract ourselves from minor annoyances rather than sitting with the irritation. While this might create a temporary calm, it builds a hidden reservoir of resentment and leaves us emotionally flabby and unprepared for the inevitable larger challenge. Voluntary discomfort is the workout that strengthens those emotional muscles. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced unimaginable pressures, would purposefully practice simplicity and hardship even in his palace. He didn't wait for fate to force discomfort upon him. He invited it in on his own terms to remain grounded and resilient. So what does this look like in a modern relationship? It starts with identifying your own personal comfort avoidances. What conversation have you been putting off because you fear the reaction? Perhaps it's a talk about finances, a concern about a habit, or a need for more quality time. Voluntary discomfort means scheduling that conversation not with dread, but with the mindset of an athlete heading to the gym. Your goal isn't a specific outcome. Your goal is to practice the virtues of courage, clear communication, and emotional regulation during the discussion itself. The act of having the talk, regardless of the result, is the repetition that makes you stronger. On a smaller, daily scale, this practice can be incredibly subtle yet powerful. Instead of immediately turning on the radio to fill an awkward silence during a car ride, voluntarily sit in that quiet for a few minutes. It's a small exercise in tolerating discomfort and discovering it won't harm you. When your partner is taking a long time to get ready and you feel that familiar itch of impatience, instead of tapping your foot or making a comment, use that exact moment as a chosen training session. Stand still, take a deep breath, and practice patience actively. Observe the feeling of impatience rise up, acknowledge it, and consciously choose not to be ruled by it. You are not just waiting, you are practicing the art of waiting with grace. Each time you do this, you accomplish two profound things. First, you break the automatic link between an external trigger and your reactive emotion. You prove to your brain that a tense conversation or a frustrating delay is not an emergency. It's merely an event. This rewires your neural pathways over time, making you less reactive. Second, you build a deep and authentic confidence in your own ability to handle difficulty. You create a personal resume of conquered challenges, however small. So when a truly chaotic, unplanned argument erupts, you don't face it as a novice. You face it as a veteran who has already trained for this very moment. You've already practiced staying calm under pressure, so when the real pressure hits, your composure isn't theoretical, it's proven. By voluntarily embracing small discomforts, you ensure that life's inevitable larger ones never find you unprepared. There is a tiny but mighty gap between something happening and you reacting to it, and learning to inhabit that space is our 13th Stoic lesson. This is the practice of the Stoic pause, a conscious and deliberate decision to insert a moment of stillness between the stimulus of your partner's action and your own response. It's in this brief window that you reclaim your power, your reason, and your ability to choose your behavior rather than having it chosen for you by raw emotion. The Roman philosopher Seneca described anger as a form of temporary madness, a brief insanity that descends and clouds our judgment. The Stoic pause is the emergency brake you pull before that train of thought leaves the station. Think of your nervous system like a domino rally. Your partner says or does something, that's the first domino being tipped. Without a pause, that single domino instantly triggers a long, cascading chain reaction. A surge of adrenaline, a racing heart, a flood of defensive thoughts, and finally, a spoken retort you can't take back. The Stoic pause is the simple act of reaching out and stopping that first domino from hitting the second. You interrupt the automatic, biological sequence just long enough for your prefrontal cortex, the rational, thoughtful part of your brain, to catch up and get back in the driver's seat. Implementing this begins with recognizing your personal triggers. What specific behaviors or tones from your partner consistently cause that first domino to tip? Is it a certain type of criticism, a particular sigh, being interrupted, or feeling ignored? Merely identifying these triggers gives you a warning signal. You start to know the feeling, that specific heat in your chest or tension in your jaw. That signifies the reaction chain is about to begin. That feeling itself becomes your cue to initiate the pause. The physical mechanism for creating this space is surprisingly simple and incredibly effective. The moment you feel triggered, your first and only job is to shift your focus to your breath. Take one slow, deep inhalation and then one full, controlled exhalation. This is not just a cliché, it's a powerful physiological intervention. Deep breathing actively stimulates your vagus nerve, which is responsible for calming your fight or flight response and lowering your heart rate. It forces a literal physical pause, giving you a crucial few seconds of grace. In that quiet moment of breath, you have the opportunity to ask yourself a set of rapid, grounding Stoic questions. First, what is actually true right now? Separate the objective event from your subjective, often exaggerated, interpretation of it. She sighed loudly. That is the fact, the story you might instantly tell yourself. She's so annoyed with me, she doesn't respect what I'm saying, this always happens, is the judgment that causes the pain. The pause allows you to challenge that story. Second, is my intended reaction virtuous? Will snapping back promote understanding, or will it only escalate the conflict? Will withdrawing protect the relationship, or will it create distance? This question aligns your next move with your deeper values instead of your temporary emotion. Finally, you can use this pause to consciously broaden your perspective, applying the view from above even in this micro moment. Is this single incident worth a major emotional expenditure? How will this feel tomorrow or next week? From the vantage point of your entire life together, does this comment or action truly hold the weight my initial reaction is giving it? This process recognizes the trigger, breathe to create space, and question your judgment might only take 5 to 10 seconds, but it is long enough to change the entire trajectory of the interaction. Your response will no longer be a knee-jerk retaliation. It will be a considered choice. You might simply say, I need a moment, or let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. This transforms potential conflict into an opportunity for connection and demonstrates a level of self-mastery that naturally de-escalates tension and builds immense trust. Now let's expand our view from the inner citadel to the entire cosmos with our 14th lesson, the profound practice of sympatheia. This ancient Stoic principle is the recognition that everything in the universe is deeply and inextricably interconnected, a single, rational, living whole. While this might sound abstract or philosophical, its practical application in your relationship is nothing short of transformative. Sympatheia invites you to see your partnership not as an isolated island of drama, but as a single, vital thread woven into the immense and beautiful tapestry of existence. When you adopt this cosmic perspective, the daily frustrations and emotional upheavals that feel so monumental suddenly shrink to their proper size, allowing you to respond from a place of profound peace rather than personal provocation. Think of a time you were embroiled in a heated disagreement. In that moment, your entire world likely contracted to the size of the room, dominated by the sound of raised voices and the sting of harsh words. Every gesture feels like a monumental event, every sentence a declaration of war. This is the default, narrow perspective that fuels conflict. Sympatheia is the mental tool that pulls the camera back, way back, to reveal the breathtakingly big picture. You are not just two individuals in a conflict, you are two conscious beings on a planet orbiting a star in one galaxy among billions, both participants in the same grand, unfolding story of the universe. From this vantage point, the thing you're arguing about, whether it's the dishes left in the sink or a misspoken comment, is revealed in its true proportion. It hasn't vanished, it simply can't maintain its inflated importance when held against the backdrop of cosmic time and space. This practice is deeply rooted in the Stoic belief in a logos, a divine reason or natural law that permeates and organizes all of reality. The Stoics saw human beings not as separate individuals competing for resources, but as limbs of a single body, each with a role to play for the health of the whole. When your partner acts in a way that feels chaotic or hurtful, sympatheia encourages you to shift your question from, "Why are they doing this to me?" to, "What is the nature of the whole of which we are both a part?" This isn't about excusing poor behavior, but about understanding it as part of a larger, complex system of cause and effect. Their reaction is not an isolated event. It is the product of their own history, their stresses, their fears, and their nature, all of which are themselves part of the endless chain of the cosmos. Applying this begins with a simple reframing exercise during moments of tension. When you feel yourself getting swept up in the chaos, pause and consciously expand your awareness. Acknowledge the shared humanity between you. You are both fragile, imperfect creatures granted a brief moment of consciousness, doing your best to navigate a complicated world, often with limited tools and deep-seated insecurities. See the argument not as a battle between you and them, but as a temporary dissonance within a much larger, mostly harmonious connection. This shift from me versus you to us within the universe is the essence of sympatheia. It fosters a powerful sense of empathy because you begin to see your partner's actions less as a personal attack and more as a symptom of their own place in the universal flow. This perspective cultivates a gentle humility that is the ultimate antidote to ego. Your desires, your need to be right, your insistence on your way, these all start to seem incredibly small when viewed from a cosmic seat. What begins to matter more is the harmony of the whole, the health of the connection, which is but one small reflection of the greater universal order. You start to ask better questions. Does winning this point serve the greater good of our shared universe, which is this relationship? Does my reaction contribute to the rational, beautiful whole, or does it introduce discord? By aligning your actions with the principle of sympatheia, you make choices that nurture the interconnected web you share with your partner, ensuring your small part of the cosmos is a place of understanding and peace rather than conflict and chaos. The strength of your inner citadel and the clarity of your cosmic perspective are not built in a single moment of crisis. They are constructed through daily, dedicated practice. This brings us to our 15th lesson, the conscious cultivation of equanimity through morning and evening rituals. Equanimity is that steady, unshakable calm, the ability to meet whatever the day brings with a balanced mind and a compassionate heart. For the Stoics, this wasn't a lofty ideal but a practical skill, honed through repetition like any other. They understood that the chaos of a heated argument is not the time to learn how to be calm. That training happens in the quiet moments of preparation that come before. Your day begins not when you open your eyes, but when you set your intention. A Stoic morning meditation is less about emptying your mind and more about actively preparing it. Before you even get out of bed, take just 5 minutes to run a mental preview of the day ahead. This isn't about worrying, it's about strategic preparation. Ask yourself, what potential challenges could arise in my interactions today? Perhaps you know your partner is stressed about a work deadline and might be short-tempered. Maybe you have a difficult topic you need to discuss later. Don't shy away from these possibilities. Instead, visualize them clearly and then, most importantly, visualize your ideal Stoic response. See yourself listening patiently instead of reacting defensively. Picture yourself offering a kind word instead of a sarcastic remark. Hear yourself speaking with clarity and compassion rather than frustration. This mental rehearsal is like laying down neural tracks for your behavior. When you encounter the real situation, your brain has already traveled this path and knows the way. Conclude this morning session by reaffirming a simple Stoic mantra. Today, I cannot control external events, but I can absolutely control my judgments and my actions. My peace is my responsibility. This daily declaration internalizes the dichotomy of control, making it a lived reality rather than just a philosophical concept. As the day unfolds, you will inevitably be tested. This is the entire point of the practice. The evening reflection then becomes your most valuable tool for growth. Before you sleep, dedicate another few minutes to an honest and gentle review of your day, specifically focusing on your relationship interactions. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a strong advocate of this practice, writing each night to interrogate his own behavior. He would ask, "What bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? In what respect are you better?" Apply this to your partnership. Think back to your interactions without judgment or self-flagellation. Ask yourself two simple questions. First, where did I succeed in maintaining my calm? Celebrate those moments, however small. Did you take a deep breath instead of interrupting? Did you recognize a trigger and choose not to react? Acknowledge that win. It is evidence of your growth. Second, and just as importantly, where did I fall short? Be a compassionate observer of your own mistakes. Did you sink to a tone you regret? Did you take a comment too personally? Instead of brushing it aside or drowning in guilt, analyze it with curiosity. Why did that particular thing hook me? What was the underlying story I was telling myself in that moment? This isn't about blame. It's about gathering data for your next training session. Understanding your misstep is the first step toward correcting it tomorrow. This daily cycle of preparation and review transforms abstract Stoic theory into tangible personal progress. The morning meditation sets your compass, pointing you toward virtue. The challenges of the day are the journey where you put your principles into practice. The evening reflection is when you check your map, see where you strayed from the course, and recalibrate for the next day's travel. This consistent practice builds what the Greeks called hexis, an ingrained state of character. Equanimity stops being something you have to consciously think about and gradually becomes who you are. You are no longer practicing calm. You are embodying it, creating a presence so steady that it naturally becomes the calm within any chaos. True harmony in a relationship begins not when two people become perfectly aligned, but when they learn to accept the inherent misalignments with grace and wisdom. This brings us to our 16th Stoic lesson, mastering the art of acceptance. This is a practice that goes far beyond mere tolerance or passive resignation. Stoic acceptance is an active, clear-eyed embrace of reality, specifically the reality of your partner's fundamental nature. It is the decision to stop fighting against the unchangeable facts of who they are and to start building a beautiful life alongside them, with those facts as your foundation. The core of this practice lies in a simple but profound distinction, one the Stoics would have fully endorsed: the difference between your partner's character and their conduct. Their character is the deep, ingrained set of traits, tendencies, and patterns that make them who they are. This is often shaped by a lifetime of experiences, their innate temperament, and their core beliefs. You cannot change this fundamental nature any more than you can change the course of a river by standing in it and willing it to flow uphill. Their conduct, however, refers to their specific actions and behaviors within the relationship. While you cannot change their core nature, you absolutely can and should address behavior that is hurtful, disrespectful, or violates the agreed-upon boundaries of your partnership. Think of it this way: your partner might have a naturally anxious disposition. That is part of their character. You cannot wish this anxiety away. It is a part of their internal landscape. However, how they choose to act on that anxiety, whether they snap at you, become controlling, or withdraw completely, is a matter of conduct. Acceptance means you stop fighting the fact that they get anxious. You accept that this is a reality you will both navigate. What you do not have to accept is being treated poorly as a result of that anxiety. Your work is to separate the person from the behavior. You can offer boundless compassion for their struggle while simultaneously holding a firm and loving boundary against the negative actions that stem from it. This is where the Stoic principle of working with reality rather than against it becomes your greatest asset. Arguing with reality is a recipe for endless frustration. It is like shaking your fist at the rain for being wet. If your partner is introverted by nature, no amount of pleading will turn them into the life of the party. If they are methodical and slow to make decisions, you will exhaust yourself trying to hurry them along. Acceptance is the moment you put down the umbrella and stop arguing with the weather. You acknowledge, this is the climate of my partner's soul. From that place of acknowledgement, you can finally start making smart choices. You stop planning large, overwhelming social gatherings and instead find joy in quiet, intimate settings. You build more time into your plans to accommodate a thoughtful decision-making process. You work with the grain of their nature, not against it. This does not mean you become a doormat or abandon your own needs. Quite the opposite, healthy boundaries are the essential counterpart to radical acceptance. A boundary is not an attempt to change the other person. It is a clear statement about what you will do to protect your own peace and self-respect when their conduct becomes problematic. For example, accepting your partner's tendency to worry does not mean you listen silently to an hour of catastrophic forecasting. Your boundary might sound like this: I love you and I know you're worried about this. I'm here to listen for a few minutes, and then I need us to talk about potential solutions or shift to a different topic, because continuing to dwell on the worst-case scenario isn't helpful for either of us. You have accepted their nature while responsibly managing your own environment. You are not trying to stop them from worrying. You are simply choosing not to be consumed by their worry. This is the balance: loving the person completely without sponsoring their unhealthy habits. One of the most transformative shifts you can make is to move from keeping a mental scorecard of your partner's mistakes to actively maintaining a ledger of their virtues. This is the heart of Stoic gratitude, a practice far more robust than simply saying thank you. The Stoics viewed gratitude not as a passive feeling of appreciation for when things go well, but as an active discipline, a chosen lens through which to interpret your entire experience, especially the challenging parts of your relationship. It is the deliberate decision to focus on what is present and good, rather than what is absent or flawed. By training yourself to see the value in your partner and in your shared experiences, you fundamentally rewire your brain to approach conflicts from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Begin by consciously reflecting on your partner's core character, not just their surface-level actions. Instead of focusing on the fact that they left dishes in the sink again, bring to mind their fundamental kindness, their unwavering loyalty, or their incredible patience with your own imperfections. The Stoics would advise you to meditate on the fact that this person, with all their unique strengths and weaknesses, chose to share their life with you. They are a gift in your life, not a problem to be solved. This isn't about ignoring their flaws, it's about refusing to let those flaws eclipse their virtues. Make this a daily practice. In the quiet of your morning meditation or during your evening reflection, bring a specific virtue of theirs to the front of your mind. Today, I am grateful for my partner's incredible work ethic, or I am thankful for their generous heart. This consistent focus acts as an anchor, preventing you from being tossed about by the minor irritations of the day. The true power of Stoic gratitude, however, is revealed not when things are easy, but when they are difficult. This is where the practice moves from pleasant to profound. The Stoic goal is to find value even in the argument, the disappointment, the frustrating habit. This is the application of Amor, Fati, the love of fate, to your daily interactions. A disagreement isn't just a conflict, it's an opportunity to practice patience and deepen your understanding of each other. Your partner's stressful mood isn't a personal attack, it's a chance to practice compassion and provide a steady, supportive presence. Even a major relationship challenge can be met with a form of gratitude, not for the pain itself, but for the strength and depth it forces you to develop. You can be grateful for the test because it shows you where you need to grow. To make this tangible, consider keeping a specific gratitude journal dedicated to your relationship. Each day, challenge yourself to write down 3 things you appreciate about your partner or your time together. Push yourself beyond the obvious. Some days it will be easy. Grateful for the way they made me laugh today. Other days, when you've had a tough interaction, your entry might look more like this. Grateful for the argument we had about finances because it forced us to finally have a long-avoided conversation about our future. Or grateful for my partner's stubbornness as it reminds me to practice humility and reminds me that I don't always have the only right answer. This practice trains you to mine every experience for its hidden value, ensuring that no moment, no matter how chaotic, is ever wasted. It transforms your relationship from a source of occasional frustration into a continuous curriculum for your own moral and emotional development. By practicing this deep, intentional gratitude, you stop waiting for your partner to become perfect to make you happy and start discovering a profound and unshakable joy in the beautifully imperfect reality you are building together. When you find yourself in a familiar argument, how often do you notice you're replaying the exact same script? The same defensive phrases, the same tone of voice, the same emotional escalation. It can feel like you're an actor in a play you never auditioned for, reciting lines that lead to an ending you don't even want. This is the trap of automatic reactivity, and breaking free from it is the focus of our 18th Stoic lesson, developing response flexibility. This isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about liberating yourself from the tyranny of your own conditioned reactions. It's the conscious practice of building a mental menu of potential responses for any given situation, so you are no longer a prisoner to your first impulsive thought. You move from having one default setting to possessing a full toolkit of options, allowing you to choose the response that best serves the situation and your values. The Stoics understood that between a stimulus and our response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. The goal of response flexibility is to widen that space from a microscopic crack into a vast courtyard where you can pause, reflect, and choose. This requires recognizing that your initial reaction is just one option, and often it's the least effective one. It's the path of least resistance that your brain has worn down through years of repetition. Every time you snap back, withdraw, or become defensive, you are deepening that neural groove, making it easier to fall into next time. Response flexibility is the deliberate act of carving new pathways, of creating alternative routes for your behavior that lead to better destinations. You can start building this skill by engaging in a simple cognitive exercise long before any conflict arises. Think of a recurring, low-stakes point of tension in your relationship. Perhaps it's your partner leaving their clothes on the floor or being consistently 5 minutes late. Now, sitting in a calm state, brainstorm at least 3 completely different ways you could respond the next time it happens. Your first option might be your habitual, automatic reaction, a sigh of frustration or a passive-aggressive comment. Acknowledge that this is option A. Now push yourself to devise option B, perhaps a humorous, light-hearted remark that acknowledges the habit without criticism. Then create option C, a response of complete non-reaction, where you simply note it internally and move on with your day without any external comment. Finally, challenge yourself to imagine an option D, a response of proactive kindness where you address the issue by doing the opposite of what your frustration demands. Maybe you just pick up the clothes without a word as an act of grace. This mental rehearsal is a form of cognitive Stoic training. You are not waiting for the heat of the moment to try to be a different person. You are programming your brain with new possibilities in a state of calm. You are building a mental portfolio of responses. Then, when the real situation occurs, you have already expanded your perception of what is possible. Instead of your brain presenting you with only one choice, the old reaction, it now has a list of alternatives. You might still feel the initial surge of annoyance, but you can now consciously ask yourself, which option will I choose today? Will I go with my default, or will I experiment with a new path? This shifts your role from an automated reactor to a strategic director of the interaction. This practice is deeply rooted in the Stoic discipline of assent. The Stoics taught that we don't control the initial impression, the first flash of anger or hurt, but we absolutely control whether we give our assent to that impression and allow it to dictate our actions. Response flexibility is the practical application of withholding that automatic assent. You feel the impulse to criticize, but you pause and refuse to assent to it. In that pause, you consult your mental menu. You might choose a response of curious inquiry instead, asking, "I've noticed this seems to happen a lot. Is everything okay? Is there something making it difficult to get out the door on time?" This transforms a potential criticism into an opportunity for connection. By cultivating multiple ways to respond, you ensure that your actions are always aligned with your character, not hijacked by your passing emotions. You become the calm by demonstrating that you are never out of options, that you always have a different way to engage that can de-escalate tension and foster understanding. When you're standing in the middle of a relationship storm, feeling the wind and rain of harsh words or cold silence, it can be incredibly difficult to know what to do next. Your emotions are loud, your thoughts are racing, and the path forward seems completely obscured. This is precisely the moment to deploy what we can call the Stoic test, a simple but powerful three-question framework that acts like a lighthouse, cutting through the fog of emotion and illuminating the wise, virtuous path. This isn't about winning an argument, it's about passing the test of your own character, ensuring that your actions align with your deepest values no matter how chaotic the situation becomes. The first and most grounding question to ask yourself is this: what virtue does this situation require of me right now? Instead of focusing on what your partner is doing wrong, you immediately shift your focus inward to what you can do right. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. In the heat of a moment, mentally run through this list. Does this require the wisdom to see the bigger picture and understand the root of the issue? Does it call for justice, ensuring you are being fair and honoring your commitments? Does it demand courage to speak a difficult truth or to be vulnerable? Or does it need temperance, the self-control to moderate your anger and choose your words with care? Often, it's a combination. A disagreement about household responsibilities might call for the justice of a fair division of labor, the courage to initiate the conversation, the temperance to avoid accusatory language, and the wisdom to understand each other's schedules and stresses. By asking for the required virtue, you stop being a reactive participant and become a proactive agent of good. The second question seamlessly follows from the first and brings us back to the bedrock Stoic principle. What is actually within my control here? Your initial, untrained instinct will be to focus on what you cannot control: your partner's tone, their mood, their willingness to listen, their agreement with your point. The Stoic test forces you to sweep all of that aside. You cannot control any of that. The only things on your side of the line are your own judgments, your intentions, your actions, and your responses. This question is the reality check that prevents you from wasting your precious energy. You can't control her anger, but you can control your compassion. You can't control his defensiveness, but you can control your patience. You can't force her to see your point, but you can control how clearly and kindly you express it. This brutal honesty about the limits of your power is what makes you truly powerful in the situation, because it directs 100% of your effort toward the only arena where you can actually affect change: yourself. Finally, the third question provides a powerful model to aspire to. How would a wise and rational person respond in this exact situation? This is not about perfection, it's about projection. It forces you to momentarily step outside of your emotional self and view the scenario from a third-party perspective. Imagine a respected mentor, a historical figure you admire, or simply an idealized version of your best self. What would that calm, composed, and virtuous person do? Would they escalate with a sharp retort, or would they de-escalate with a question? Would they withdraw in a sulk, or would they lean in with empathetic curiosity? This question leverages our innate ability to tell ourselves stories. You are essentially writing a better script for the scene you're in, and then choosing to step into that role. It moves you from asking, "What do I feel like doing?" which is often destructive, to "What would be the most admirable thing to do?" which is almost always constructive. Applying the Stoic test turns a chaotic argument into a deliberate practice session. The moment you feel the tension rise, you can initiate this internal triage. The entire process can take less than 30 seconds, but it changes everything. Let's say your partner criticizes you for working late again. Your raw emotion wants to lash out about their spending or their lack of appreciation for your hard work. Instead, you pause and apply the test. 1. What virtue is required? This calls for courage to acknowledge a valid concern, temperance to avoid a defensive counterattack, and wisdom to see the real issue is a shared desire for connection. 2. What can I control? I cannot control their criticism or their tone, but I can control my acknowledgement of their feeling and my explanation of my workload without justification. 3. How would a wise person respond? They would listen fully, validate the emotion behind the criticism, and then collaboratively discuss how to better balance time. Your response transforms from "You have no idea how hard I work" to "I hear that you're feeling disconnected and I miss our time together too. My project deadline is Friday. Can we plan a special night this weekend to reconnect?" This is how you become the calm, by consistently choosing the response that builds bridges instead of burning them. How much of your mental energy is spent worrying about where your relationship is headed? Do you find yourself lying awake at night, anxious about whether you'll end up together, whether you're truly compatible, or if a current disagreement is a sign of impending doom? This constant preoccupation with the future is a massive source of internal chaos, and it stems from a fundamental misplacement of our focus. We become so fixated on the destination, the outcome we desperately want, that we completely neglect the quality of the journey itself. The 20th Stoic lesson offers a powerful corrective to this, the practice of shifting from an outcome focus to a character focus. This means releasing your tight grip on the need for a specific future, result, and redirecting all your attention to the only thing you can truly command, acting with virtue and integrity in this present moment. An outcome focus is inherently fraught with anxiety because it ties your emotional well-being to things almost entirely outside your control. You cannot control whether your relationship lasts a lifetime. You cannot control your partner's feelings or their ultimate decision to stay or go. You cannot control external events that might strain your bond. When you invest your happiness in these uncertain futures, you hand over the keys to your inner peace to forces you cannot influence. It's like being a sailor who is constantly terrified of the storm on the horizon, so much so that he fails to properly tend to the sails and the helm of his ship in the present. He is so worried about the destination that he crashes in the here and now. The Stoic alternative is to forget about controlling the weather and instead focus on becoming the best, most skillful sailor you can be right now. This is where character focus comes in. Your character, your ability to act with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is the one thing that is always 100% within your control. It is your internal rudder. The goal is no longer, "I must make this relationship work." The goal becomes, "No matter what happens in this relationship, I will act in a way that is honorable, kind, and true to my values." This shift is revolutionary because it transfers the locus of your success from an external result to an internal state. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, waiting to see if fate will grant you happiness. You become the author of your own moral victory in every single interaction, regardless of the final outcome. A relationship might end, but if you navigated its end with grace, honesty, and compassion, you have not failed. You have succeeded in the most important way. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're having a difficult conversation about the future. An outcome-focused approach would sound like this in your head. I have to convince them to see things my way. I need them to agree to this plan. If they don't, it means we're doomed. Your entire energy is geared towards securing a specific agreement, and if you meet resistance, you feel anxious, pushy, or defeated. A character-focused approach sounds completely different. My goal is not to win this discussion. My goal is to express my perspective clearly and kindly, to listen to theirs with an open mind, and to treat them with respect throughout. The final decision is out of my hands, but my conduct is mine to own. This mindset immediately lowers the pressure. You are no longer fighting for an unpredictable result. You are practicing the virtues of communication and respect, which are always available to you. This practice systematically dismantles anxiety about the future. When you stop measuring the health of your relationship by its hypothetical future and start measuring it by the quality of your present moment actions, you reclaim a profound sense of agency. You cannot know if you will be together in 5 years, but you can know with absolute certainty that you are patient and understanding during tonight's conversation. You can't guarantee your partner will always be happy, but you can guarantee that you responded to their sadness with empathy and support. This grounds you in a reality you can actually manage. The future becomes a series of nows, and if you master the nows, the future will take care of itself. It may not look exactly as you pictured, but you will be able to face it with your character intact and your conscience clear, which is the only true security any of us ever really has. Emotional sovereignty isn't about building a wall around your heart or pretending you don't have feelings. It's the opposite. It's about claiming full ownership of your inner world so that you can engage with your partner more openly, more honestly, and more compassionately, without the constant fear that their mood will dictate your own. This is the ultimate application of the Stoic principle that our well-being comes from within, not from external validation or circumstances. It's the decision to stop handing your partner the remote control to your emotional state and to reclaim the power to choose how you feel, regardless of the chaos swirling around you. Think about the default dynamic in many relationships. Your partner comes home from work stressed and irritable. They're short with you. Maybe they withdraw into silence. The untrained reaction is to absorb that energy instantly. Their stress becomes your stress. Their bad mood ruins your evening. You might feel personally targeted, thinking, "What did I do wrong?" Or you might feel resentful, thinking, "They're so selfish, they're ruining my night." In both cases, your emotional reality is being held hostage by their behavior. You have effectively made them responsible for your feelings. Emotional sovereignty is the conscious uncoupling from this cycle. It's the realization that while you can be deeply affected by your partner, you do not have to be infected by their emotional state. This begins with a simple but profound reframe. Your partner's emotions are their property. Your emotions are yours. Their frustration, anxiety, or sadness is a reflection of their internal world, their struggles, their history. It is not inherently a commentary on you or the relationship. When they snap at you, it is far more likely to be about a bad day at the office or an internal pressure they're under than a calculated personal attack. Your job is not to manage, fix, or absorb their emotions. Your job is to manage your response to them. This is where your true power lies. You can offer empathy and support, a listening ear, a hug, a kind word without making their emotional storm your personal weather system. You can be a calm, steady harbor for their ship without becoming the storm-tossed sea itself. Implementing this requires a practice the Stoics would call labeling and releasing. When you feel a strong negative emotion rise up in response to your partner, your first step is to pause and label its true source. That knot of anxiety in your stomach when they're upset, is that truly about their problem? Or is it your own fear of conflict or your need for everything to be harmonious? That flash of anger when they criticize you, is it about the content of their words, or is it your own ego feeling wounded? By honestly labeling the source, you reclaim responsibility. You move from "you made me angry" to "I am feeling angry and I am choosing how to handle this feeling." This tiny shift in language is a seismic shift in personal power. This doesn't mean you become a detached, unfeeling robot. Emotional sovereignty actually allows for deeper connection because it comes from a place of strength, not neediness. When you are no longer relying on your partner to regulate your emotions, you stop making covert contracts, the unspoken agreements where you think, "If I am nice to them, they should be in a good mood for me." These contracts are a recipe for resentment because your partner cannot possibly know or fulfill them. Instead, you interact from a place of wholeness. You can offer love and support because you genuinely want to, not because you need something back from them to feel okay yourself. This creates a much healthier, more secure bond where both people are free to be their authentic selves, including their messy, chaotic selves, without fear of crashing the entire relationship. You become the calm not by avoiding the chaos, but by developing an inner stability so robust that you can welcome it without being swept away. There is a profound difference between talking and truly communicating, and mastering this distinction is the key to transforming conflict into connection. Stoic communication is not about winning debates or proving a point. It is about using your words as a tool to build understanding, express your truth with integrity, and uphold the dignity of everyone involved, especially when emotions run high. It is the practical application of your inner calm to your outer dialogue. The first pillar of this practice is speaking with both honesty and kindness. The Stoics valued truth above all, but they were equally devoted to the virtue of justice, which includes treating others with fundamental respect. This means refusing to use honesty as a weapon. You can express a difficult truth without wrapping it in blame or accusation. The key is to focus on your own experience using "I" statements rather than launching "you" statements that feel like attacks. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," which is a global criticism that puts your partner on the defensive, you can frame it with stoic honesty and kindness. "I feel hurt when I'm sharing something important, and I get the sense the phone is more interesting. I would really value your full attention when we talk." The first statement assigns blame, the second expresses a personal feeling and a clear, reasonable need. This approach comes from a place of owning your emotional experience without making your partner the villain for it. Equally important is the discipline of listening without judgment, which the Stoics called practicing the reserve clause. This means you listen to understand, not to immediately rebut or defend. You consciously suspend your internal commentary and the urgent need to correct or interject. Your sole purpose in that moment is to fully receive what your partner is communicating, to see the world through their eyes, even if you don't agree with their perspective. This is an act of profound respect. It says, "Your reality is valid and I am here to understand it." Judgmental listening is filled with mental interruptions, formulating your counter-argument, dismissing their feelings as irrational, or planning your defense. Stoic listening requires you to quiet that internal noise. You might even paraphrase what you've heard to ensure you've understood correctly, saying something like, "So what I'm hearing is that when I work late, you feel disconnected and unimportant." Is that right? This reflective listening does not mean you agree. It means you are committed to understanding. It makes your partner feel heard and valued, which is often the very antidote to the chaos they're feeling. Finally, Stoic communication involves expressing your needs without framing them as demands. This is a critical application of the dichotomy of control. You can control clearly and vulnerably stating what you need for your own well-being and the health of the relationship. What you cannot control, and therefore should not demand, is that your partner fulfill that need in the exact way and on the exact timeline you prescribe. A demand sounds like an ultimatum. You need to start helping with the dishes immediately, or else it attempts to control the other person's actions and often triggers resistance. Expressing a need, however, sounds like an invitation. I feel overwhelmed keeping up with the kitchen by myself. I would really appreciate it if we could find a way to tackle the dishes together so it feels more manageable for me. You have expressed the same core need, but you have done so by stating your reality and inviting collaboration. You have handed your partner the problem to solve with you, rather than handing them a command to obey. This respects their autonomy and acknowledges that the solution might look different than you initially imagined. It transforms a potential power struggle into a partnership opportunity where you are both working on the same side against the problem rather than against each other. It's one thing to feel calm on the inside, to master your judgments and manage your reactions, but Stoicism was never a philosophy meant for quiet contemplation alone. It is a philosophy of action. This brings us to a lesson that separates theoretical understanding from lived wisdom, the discipline of action. This is the practice of ensuring your outward behavior consistently reflects your inward virtues, especially when every fiber of your being is pulling you in the opposite direction. It's the commitment to do what is right, not what is easy, and to let your actions be the ultimate expression of your character, even and especially when you are swimming against a strong emotional current. The discipline of action asks a simple but profound question of you in every interaction. Will your feelings dictate your actions, or will your principles? Your initial emotional impulse is a powerful force, but the Stoics saw it as raw, unrefined energy like a rushing river. Left unchecked, it floods its banks and causes destruction. The discipline of action is the levee you build not to stop the river, but to channel its power toward a purposeful end. When you feel the surge of anger, the discipline of action is what allows you to channel that energy into setting a firm but respectful boundary instead of launching a personal attack. When you feel the pull of anxiety, it's what moves you to voice a vulnerable need instead of withdrawing into cold silence. Your emotion becomes the fuel for a virtuous deed rather than the spark for a regrettable one. This requires a moment-to-moment awareness, a constant checking of your compass. Before you speak or act, particularly in a tense situation, you develop the habit of running a quick internal audit. You ask yourself, is what I am about to do driven by a temporary feeling, or is it aligned with my core values of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance? Am I about to do this because it feels good in the moment, or because it is good for the relationship in the long term? This pause is where the discipline lies. It's the space where you override the primal urge to retaliate, to run, or to shut down, and you consciously select a response that serves a higher purpose. Consider a common scenario. Your partner makes a comment that feels deeply unfair. The immediate, easy action is to retaliate with a cutting remark of your own, to list all the ways they are wrong, to make them feel the same sting you're feeling. That is the path of least resistance. The disciplined action is far more difficult. It is to take a breath, to feel the hurt without being consumed by it, and to choose a different path. It might look like saying, "What you just said really hurt. I want to understand where you're coming from, but I need you to know how that landed for me." This response isn't passive, it's powerfully active. It requires the courage to be vulnerable, the justice to be fair even when you feel wronged, the temperance to moderate your anger, and the wisdom to seek understanding over victory. You are taking the exact same emotional energy and directing it toward building a bridge instead of launching a missile. This practice transforms your relationship into a daily gym for your virtue. Every minor irritation becomes an opportunity to practice patience. Every misunderstanding becomes a chance to practice clarity. Every moment of frustration becomes a test of your compassion. You stop seeing your partner as an obstacle to your peace and start seeing them as the very person who provides the resistance you need to grow stronger. The goal is no longer to have a conflict-free life, but to navigate the inevitable conflicts in a way that makes you both better people. By applying the discipline of action, you ensure that your love is not just a feeling you have, but a series of things you consistently and courageously do. Now we arrive at a lesson that pulls together all the threads we've been weaving, guiding us toward a vision of partnership that is far more profound and enduring than the one our culture often sells us. This is about cultivating relationship wisdom, moving beyond the fleeting rush of romantic fantasy to build something rooted in the sturdy, timeless soil of Stoic virtue. The initial spark of infatuation is a wonderful thing, but it's a terrible foundation for a shared life. It's like a firework, bright, exciting, and over in a moment. Stoicism invites us to build a hearth fire instead, a steady, reliable source of warmth and light that can sustain you through long winters, not just a single dazzling night. So what does this wiser, more stoic vision of a fulfilling relationship actually look like? It begins with a fundamental shift in goal. The fantasy tells us the goal is to find our other half, someone who completes us and makes us happy. The Stoic perspective flips this entirely. The goal is not to find completion in another person, but to partner with someone while you each pursue your own wholeness. You are not two incomplete halves searching for wholeness through each other. You are two already whole people choosing to walk the same path, side by side, toward mutual growth. Your partner is not responsible for your happiness. They are your fellow traveler and your witness on the journey to virtue. This shifts the entire measure of a relationship success. We stop asking, does this person make me feel good all the time? And start asking, do we help each other become better people? Do we encourage each other's courage, wisdom, justice, and self-control? The most fulfilling relationship from a Stoic viewpoint is not the one that is easiest or most pleasurable, but the one that provides the best conditions for both individuals to practice and strengthen their character. It is a partnership that sees every challenge, every disagreement, and every moment of friction as raw material for moral and emotional growth. A smooth, conflict-free relationship might be comfortable, but a relationship that navigates conflict with grace and emerges with deeper understanding is where true wisdom is forged. This leads to the core of practical Stoic partnership, a shared commitment to virtue. Imagine your relationship as a small, shared society with its own constitution. That constitution isn't based on feelings, which are as changeable as the weather, but on a mutually agreed upon set of principles. You are not just two individuals living together. You are co-creators of a mini-civilization built on fairness, honesty, courage, and kindness. When a decision needs to be made, the guiding question isn't, what do I want, or even, what do you want, but what would be the most just and wise choice for our shared society? This reframes everything from financial planning to dividing household chores to navigating disagreements with in-laws. You are no longer opponents negotiating a treaty. You are co-rulers deliberating on the best way to steward your shared kingdom. Ultimately, this cultivation of wisdom teaches us that love is not a noun, it is a verb. It is not a feeling you fall into, but a series of actions you choose to perform day after day, especially when it's difficult. It is the action of choosing patience when you feel impatient. It is the action of offering gratitude when you feel taken for granted. It is the action of listening with an open heart when you feel defensive. The romantic fantasy promises a destination of perpetual happiness. Stoic wisdom offers a path of purposeful action. The deepest fulfillment comes not from passively receiving love, but from actively generating it through your own virtuous choices, creating a bond that is less about what you get from each other and more about what you build together. Now we arrive at our final and most crucial lesson, the one that ties all the others together and transforms them from interesting ideas into a lived reality, the daily integration of Stoic practice. Knowledge that isn't applied is merely trivia. It's like owning a toolbox full of the finest instruments but never using them to build anything. The true power of these 24 lessons is unlocked only when they become as natural and habitual as breathing, woven into the very fabric of your daily interactions and your inner dialogue. This isn't about adding more to your to-do list. It's about changing how you approach the list you already have. It's about building a sustainable system for ongoing growth, ensuring that your journey toward becoming the calm doesn't end with this video but truly begins. Let's design a simple, powerful daily structure based on the 3 key phases of Stoic living: preparation, action, and reflection. This triad, modeled on the practices of philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, ensures you are fortified for the day ahead, mindful during its events, and wiser once it's done. Your morning preparation is your mental inoculation against chaos. Before the world has a chance to impose its agenda on you, take just 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time. This is not for checking your phone or planning your schedule. It is for setting your philosophical compass. Begin by quietly reviewing the Stoic dichotomy of control. Mentally list the things that will be outside your command today: your partner's mood, the traffic, work deadlines, the reactions of others. Then affirm what is within your power: your own judgments, your responses, your efforts, and your values. This grounds you in reality before the day begins. Next, engage in a brief session of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of challenges. Ask yourself, what potential relationship friction points might arise today? Is there a difficult conversation looming? Is my partner stressed about something? Vividly imagine these scenarios unfolding, but crucially, visualize yourself navigating them with Stoic virtue. See yourself pausing before speaking, listening with empathy, and choosing a response aligned with courage and kindness. This mental rehearsal primes your brain to access calm when the real pressure hits. Conclude your morning ritual by selecting one specific virtue to focus on for the day. It might be patience, compassion, or honesty. Carry this single intention with you like a mantra, letting it guide your interactions. The second phase is the discipline of action throughout your day. This is where your preparation meets reality. Your goal here is not perfection, but mindful practice. Use your chosen virtue as a lens. When your partner says something that triggers you, that is your cue to activate the Stoic pause. Take that one deep breath. In that space, ask your 3 rapid-fire questions. What virtue is required here? What is within my control? How would my wisest self respond? This momentary checkpoint can prevent hours of conflict. Look for opportunities to practice voluntary discomfort in small ways. Choose to have that minor conversation you've been avoiding. Decide to sit in a moment of silence without filling it. Use these micro moments as strength training for your character, and consciously apply the view from above whenever a situation starts to feel overwhelming. Pull your perspective back to the cosmic scale. Remember the vastness of time and space, and see the present irritation for the small, transient thing it is. This isn't to minimize your experience, but to maximize your clarity about what truly matters. Finally, the evening reflection is where the learning is cemented. This is your daily debrief, a time for honest and compassionate self-assessment. Find a few quiet minutes before bed, perhaps with a journal. Ask yourself the questions Seneca asked himself. What bad habit did I cure today? What fault did I resist? In what respect am I better? Apply this specifically to your relationship. Review the day's interactions. Where did I succeed in being the calm? Celebrate that win, no matter how small. Perhaps you bit your tongue instead of snapping, or you offered a kind word when you felt like criticizing. Acknowledge that progress. Then, with equal parts honesty and kindness, examine where you fell short. Did I get defensive? Did I take something personally that wasn't? Instead of judging yourself, analyze the moment with curiosity. What was the trigger? What story was I telling myself? What virtue did I forget to call upon? This is not about guilt, it's about gathering data. Understanding your misstep is how you program a better response for next time. Conclude this reflection by practicing Stoic gratitude. Write down one thing about your partner or your relationship that you are genuinely thankful for, especially on a challenging day. This actively rewires your brain to seek the good. To make this stick, attach these practices to existing habits. Do your morning meditation with your morning coffee. Conduct your evening reflection while brushing your teeth. The consistency is what builds the neural pathways, turning effortful practice into effortless character. This daily cycle of preparation, action, and reflection transforms your relationship into a living workshop. You are no longer a passive participant buffeted by emotional storms. You are an active student and a dedicated craftsman, patiently and consistently building the unshakable calm that will not only preserve your peace but become the greatest gift you can offer to the person you love. So there you have it, 25 transformative lessons to help you become the calm in the chaos, a steady presence in your relationship no matter what storms may arise. But as we bring this journey to a close, it's important to recognize that these aren't just individual tips or life hacks. Together, they form a complete and coherent framework for living and loving with more wisdom, resilience, and deep inner peace. Stoicism offers us something far more valuable than temporary coping strategies. It provides a philosophy for life, one that reconnects us with our own agency and reminds us that true tranquility doesn't come from controlling the world around us, but from mastering the world within us. At its heart, this entire framework rests on one foundational truth: your peace is an inside job. It's not something your partner can give you, and it's not something they can take away. So many of us fall into the trap of believing, "I'll be happy when my partner changes," or "I'll feel calm once they start acting differently." That mindset hands over your emotional well-being to someone else, making you a passenger in your own life. These 25 lessons systematically dismantle that illusion. They guide you back to the unshakable understanding that your reactions, your judgments, and your values are the only things that truly belong to you, and that within that space lies infinite freedom. When you stop seeking external validation and start cultivating internal fortitude, you break the cycle of reactivity for good. You realize that you don't need your relationship to be perfect to be perfectly at peace. Now, understanding these principles is one thing, but the real magic, the true transformation, happens in the doing. This isn't a philosophy to be admired from a distance, it's a practice to be lived daily. It's in the moment you choose to take a deep breath instead of snapping back. It's in the conscious decision to see a frustrating argument as a chance to practice patience. It's in the quiet evening reflection where you acknowledge your mistakes and commit to doing better tomorrow. Consistency is everything. You wouldn't expect to build physical strength by going to the gym once. Similarly, you build emotional and philosophical resilience through small, daily repetitions. Some days you'll stumble, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you choose understanding over accusation, you are strengthening that calm inner citadel, making it more resilient for the next challenge. I would love to hear how these lessons resonate with you. Which principle felt most impactful? Where are you finding the greatest challenge, and where have you already seen a shift? Your stories and experiences are what turn this from a one-sided conversation into a shared journey of growth. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's create a community of support and learning, reminding each other that we're not alone in striving to build healthier, calmer, more loving relationships. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Stoic wisdom. Remember, the calm isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a practice you carry with you, one mindful choice at a time.